Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Hey podcast lovers, my name is Haley and I run the Don't Identify podcast. I have been passionate about helping the unidentified get their names back ever since I found out I lived within miles of where Sherry Ann Jarvis, formerly known as the Walker County Jane Doe, was found. In my podcast, I tell the stories and provide information about unidentified people in hopes of reaching their loved ones and getting their names back. So come join me and help me advocate for these people. You never know, you could recognize someone's story.
Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva.
And this is Twisted Listeners, a podcast about murder
and lists.
And we're brought to you by the Podmoth Podcasting Network, the best little podcast and network around. We've got a lot of new podcasts on our network, so it's pretty fucking cool. Check them all out. This week we are doing, what is this? Murders on Halloween.
Murders of Halloween. Yeah, the day of, thereabouts. We had one last time that was at a Halloween, en route to a Halloween party.
It
so
was
close
a party.
enough.
And weirdly, I wanted to tell you guys,
my
story about Yoshihiro Hattori actually came out on the 30-year anniversary of his murder.
That's crazy when that shit happens. It's spooky.
Which was yesterday, as a matter of fact. So it was October 17th, 1992. So pretty fucked up. And it's great his parents are still fighting the good fight for gun control and showing people that there is culture outside of American gun culture that is valid and valuable and you can live a different way. So there we have it.
Really horrible story, but inspiring parents and very spooky much. That you lined up with the day of there.
I know, we've done that a few times and it's super fucking weird.
I also have this curse where I'll like start listening to a podcast or get really into a case and then I'll look at and find out that it's like the exact anniversary date. And I'm like, how does this keep happening to me? It's happened
awesome.
Like 10 times.
I love that. Ooh, I believe in numbers. Anyway, I don't know what I believe about them, but I believe they exist.
Numbers exist.
Numbers exist. It's spooky. Anyway, okay. I promise you guys, we recorded a Patreon episode. It will be out before this one because I'm not going to edit that bitch. I'm just going to post it.
It is recorded, and we have plans for a series of, I think, maybe more than one crime conversation because the true crime news has been exploding recently. Also, speaking of which, fuck you, Paul Flores, you guilty as fuck bitch. Oh my God. Got found so guilty. And I cannot wait to watch the little panicked look in his eyes when he gets sentenced. I say his eyes because he'll probably have to wear a mask. But like, you know, you can still see the panic in his eyes when he gets a life sentence. It's going to be like so fucking sweet. That guy is a horrible person.
He is a piece of dog shit. And so is his dad, who got off, I think, by the skin of his teeth. He is
just for lack of evidence. And
we all know you did it, motherfucker.
And I, you know, we try to be like less into the criminal justice system. I try to not celebrate life sentences, but in this case, this guy's a fucking monster of like the top Ted Bundy variety. Like, he is disgusting.
What's so funny is I was thinking earlier about like how we are going to have to kind of explain away our celebration of this. I do not support the death penalty, but I do, in some cases, support life in prison.
Yeah. And I mean, this guy had a folder. We're talking about the case of Kristen Smart, right?
Kristen Smart.
In case you don't know, from San Luis Obispo. And Paul Flores, I just want to point out, literally had a folder on his computer of photos of rape victims unconscious.
Yeah.
Like,
which were all women that he raped. Like, he's
a demon.
He is a fucking demon and he will never hurt another woman.
And his parents are like, this is great. We love you, son.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, I wonder where this, like he's been enabled to be this piece of shit his whole life.
What a scary family.
And, you know, I'm just so excited for him to go to prison. I'm just so excited for this new chapter of his life. The final chapter, and I just can't wait to see what
it's going to be satisfying. And he's been so smug and thinking he can't get caught, and like
he really has. He has.
And I go follow the Your Own Backyard trial coverage. It's riveting, and the lawyer is such an asshole. Again, we'll talk about it on the Patreon, but I can't wait to see him get let off in handcuffs and see a little panic in his eyeballs, just like when Derek Chauvin was sentenced. That was the most satisfying, like, footage. I watched it like 5 times because it was so satisfying to see his little eyes like,
oh shit. That was, yeah. Like, oh shit. This is my life. And
I'm actually being held accountable for something.
Oh God, I love it when people who think they're untouchable are just proven wrong.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, it's just so good. Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm fucking hot for justice. Okay. All right, let's get into it. If you'd like to join us on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/twistedlisters. If you'd like to join us on TikTok, which there's no point. We don't do anything on there, but we're there. It's at Twisted Listers.
Good archival content.
You know, yeah. If you'd like to join us on Instagram, you can do that at
Twisted Listers PCast.
If you'd like to check out our website, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod.com.
And if you'd like to send us an email with case suggestions or just to say hello, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod@gmail.com. And you did that out of order. It threw me off.
I know. I'm sorry. I was like, is she going to get it? Is she going to get it? And you totally got it. You did it.
It's not 8 a.m. I can do it.
I know. Putting you through your paces. Okay.
The other day at 8 a.m. when we recorded, Cindy was like, I'm Cindy. And I was like, what?
Oh, I left that in. I left that in.
Oh no, I forgot who I am.
Like, yeah, I left that in. I didn't edit that out, so that was really fun.
It was too early.
All right. Anyway, let's get down to it.
Let's do it.
I'm going to do the story of Kathleen and Dawson McGeHee. I'm going to start talking about Kathleen Dawson, who went by Katy. Year is 2011, and Katy is 55 years old. She's living in Manteca, which is a small town about 75 miles east of San Francisco, kind of in the middle of California. And I do believe that Manteca is the Spanish word for lard, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So I've driven
Manteca, if you're
Manteca. There's also Los Banos. There's no accent over the end, so it's not baños, but
it's not the bathrooms. Okay.
No, but it's close enough.
Okay.
California fucked around and found out with Spanish words before they understood them.
The lard, the bathrooms.
Yeah, some amazing names in California. But in any case, she lived there in Manteca with her husband and one of her 4 children. Actually, 2 of her 4 children. One of them being 26-year-old Dawson.
Okay.
So Katy was a dedicated mother to all 4 of her children. All of them were grown. And so she and her husband, who were active members of their local church, moved to Manteca. That's how you say it in California because we're all white idiots here.
Yes.
Anyway, they moved there about 10 years prior. So in 2001, when Dawson and his younger sister were still in school, I believe the other 2 kids were already out of high school or very nearly out of high school. Dawson would have been 16 and his younger sister, I think, would have been like somewhere between like 10 and 14, something like that. Okay. So they moved from San Leandro, which is like a pretty sleepy Bay Area town. So still pretty local.
South of Oakland, kind of.
Yeah. I remember when a friend moved there and I moved her there and I just remember everything was like wet and gray.
Yeah. And we went to that Target a few times. It's got a nice Target.
Yeah, no, it's a nice spot. I think it's kind of coming. I mean, the Bay Area is super expensive now, but at the time it was just kind of chill. So Kathleen, I believe, was a stay-at-home mom, and her husband Tom still actually commuted to the Bay Area for work, which is pretty common. I actually have I believe Michelle. Don't you live in Manteca? Am I making that up? Do you live somewhere else that's like similarly named? No, I think you live in Manteca. Yeah. Michelle is one of our listeners and also like one of my very best friend's older sister.
Amazing.
And she's also fucking rad in her own right. And I'm pretty sure that's where she lives. Sorry, I'm coughing a lot. I'll edit that out. Anyway, so this is Manteca. And I don't know what Tom did, but I think he made a pretty good amount of money. But I was going to say that Michelle's husband also commutes into the Bay Area for work. Apparently, that's a pretty common thing to do.
Yeah.
So they lived at 894 Golden Pond Drive in a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, single-story home. Katy was a wonderful woman by all accounts. She'd become increasingly involved in victim advocacy for victims of domestic violence in recent years. And her giving nature and love of other people made her like the perfect person for this type of volunteer work. And she really threw herself into it. And people were just like, we're so lucky to have her. She's so compassionate. Like, she really, really makes a difference. And like I said, in her home life, she was a wonderful wife and mother. She raised all of her children with this like sort of endless, selfless care and giving nature. And 3 of her 4 children flourished in this environment. One did not. The one who did not was, as you can probably guess, Dawson, who was 26 and still living at home in 2011.
Okay.
Dawson had sort of, failed to launch, as they say.
Yeah.
So spent a lot of time at home having his parents, mostly his mother, Katy, cook and clean for him while he worked part-time at Macaroni Grill and went to a local college. So his mother had spent the last few years of her life, she wasn't dead, but the last few years of her time caring for her brother who died of Parkinson's and also her sister who died of a brain tumor. So Katy was spending a lot of time caring for other people in kind of their end of days. So Dawson had always kind of been the baby of the family despite not being the youngest. He didn't really like that Katy's attention was divided between him and her ailing siblings. So he would do weird shit like copycatting her brother's jerky movements and like Parkinson. Like he would stutter like that. Like I guess her sister, like because of the brain tumor, would like stutter and had like difficulty speaking. And he would kind of copycat these kind of ailments to get attention, which is kind of weird.
Really weird.
Yeah, and Katy was endlessly caring and compassionate, and she knew that Dawson kind of was a special kind of kid, or adult at this point. So she did continue to kind of nurture him and give him more love, hoping that
that's her son. Like whatever.
And all of her other kids were raised the same way and did great. So like, Anyway, so eventually, after years of living this way, Dawson kind of became more demanding of time and became more difficult to deal with. And pretty soon, both Katy and Tom had had enough. And they started telling him, like, you need to pull your own weight. Like, you need to do your own laundry. You need to wash your own dishes. Like, you need to contribute to this household.
That's, not that crazy to ask. No,
he's definitely not like Cinderella,
No.
Like, please just take care of your own self. And it got to the point where they're like, if you don't do this, we're going to have to make you move out. And he was fucking pissed. And apparently the fighting got so bad and he was so resistant to even basically he wouldn't wipe his own ass, that his parents actually called the police and had the police come to the house and explain to him, yes, your parents can legally kick you out of the house. We can escort you out of here. They can demand that you pay rent. They can demand that you do dishes and help in the house. And if you don't, they 100% can kick you out.
Yeah.
So it got bad that they had to like get to this point. And after this visit by the cops, Dawson's older brother, Justin, said that he kind of started to notice like a pretty big change in Dawson's behavior. He said that Dawson was more agitated, a lot shorter with his mother, and just less happy overall. He and his mom started fighting more and more because basically she was putting her foot down and she was saying, I'm doing, victims advocacy work. I'm more involved in the church. Like, I don't.
Yeah, she's got her own shit going on.
Yeah, like, you're 26 years old. I'm fucking done babying you. And, like, I need to put up these boundaries and you need to respect them, right? And one of the things that she did was she got Dawson into therapy, which was, meant to help him grow the fuck up.
Sure.
But Dawson hated this. He resisted everything. He went to the therapy, I think, because he probably enjoyed having somebody who just had to hear him talk about himself, But other than that, he was very resistant to everything. So Tom was also involved in the fighting, but he was out of town a lot for work. So he wasn't quite as, it was mostly him and Katy, him and his mom. So anyway, it's October 2011 and Tom is once again out of town. This time he's actually on a business trip to China. Katy and Dawson are both at home. It's the Halloween weekend. So Halloween is on a Monday, just like it is this year, weirdly. And so basically it's Saturday the 30th. Or no, sorry. Halloween is on a Sunday. So it's Saturday the 30th and Sunday the 31st. That's the weekend that we're in. Nobody else is home with the two. But Caitlin, Dawson's sister, who also lived at the house, had been out of town but was on her way back and had asked her mom to come pick her up. So when Caitlin, I'm just going to start referring to Katy as her mom and his mom because it's Caitlin and Katy, so it can get confusing.
Got it.
So when Caitlin called their mom, there was no answer, which was weird because they'd already planned this pickup, right?
Yeah.
So she called the home phone, she called Katy's cell phone, or she called her mom's cell phone. But pretty quickly, Dawson called her back. And he was like, yeah, mom's phone isn't working, the home phone isn't working. I'll come pick you up. Like, mom's out somewhere. And Caitlin's like, oh, okay, cool, whatever.
All right.
So it's like 8 o'clock at night, something like that. And Caitlin was hoping to just go home. But Dawson's like, oh, I need to go up to Sacramento, which is, like I said, about an hour away. Or I don't know if I said that, but it's about an hour away. And he's like, I have to go pick up some weed, which he referred to as my medicine. He then proceeded to get lost in various areas of Sacramento, saying like, oh, normally I'm here when it's light out, like it's dark. I don't know where I'm going. He stopped to get fast food. He basically just wasted a ton of time.
Went out of his way to get lost.
Yes. So it took her from the time she got picked up till they got home was like over 4 hours. So it was almost like midnight by the time they got home, right? As they get back to the house, Dawson says to Caitlin, like, Mom is asleep. Do not go in and wake her up. Like, leave her alone. And Caitlin's like, why the fuck would I go in at midnight and wake Mom up? Like, of course I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go to bed, right?
Yeah.
So she also later said that night that Dawson was pacing the hallway and off and on, like, straight up guarding his mom's room. And she said when she woke up the next morning, the weirdness continued. Dawson got up early and he was like, oh, Mom was up between 5 and 6 this morning. She said she couldn't sleep. She wasn't feeling well. So she went back to bed. Don't interrupt her. Like, don't wake her up. Caitlin's like, okay, that's fucking
The more
weird.
you mention it, the more you
right? The more
suspicious.
She's like, I really want to check on Mom. So she actually waited until Dawson was like in the bathroom or somewhere not watching her.
Stepped away.
And tried to open the door, but the bedroom door was locked and the shades were drawn. And so she's like, something fucking weird is going on. And she also said Dawson was acting really strange and just generally like was really, when he picked her up, he was super talkative and hyped up and like happy. She said it was almost like a manic episode, you know? So Dawson's then like, come run an errand with me. So he takes her out of the house for a few hours. He finally drops her back at the house and he bails. Like he leaves in his car and he leaves Caitlin home alone. So she's banging on her mom's door at this point, like trying to get in. The door's locked. She fucking calls 911. She's like, something is wrong with my mom. Yeah. Something's fucking wrong with my brother. What the fuck, right? So police came and they broke down the door to their mother's room. And inside, they found Katy's body. She had been stabbed 11 times in the face and neck. And I think 10 out of the 11 stabs had been individually fatal. So this was a brutal fucking attack.
Overkill, as they say. Yeah.
Yes. Caitlin was obviously horrified and immediately told the police about Dawson's behavior. So police, take the body out. They start searching the house. And inside the house, they find a bloody Hell-O-Ween mask, which Caitlin identified as belonging to Dawson. And I want to stop right here because this would have also worked for the people wearing Hell-O-Ween masks.
We had that, yeah. On both lists.
Yeah. Oh, was he on the list for this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Also, do you mean Hell-O-Ween like Michael Myers?
They didn't say what kind of mask
or just
it was.
Some kind of Halloween.
There was actually a photo of it, and it's not a Michael Myers mask. It's more, I think it's more like Jason-y in its nature. So apparently, as part of his therapy, Dawson had said, like, his therapist had told him, like, you need to face your fears. And I guess one of them was scary movies. And he then became, like, obsessed with horror movies and would wear this mask around the house, like, just randomly, just like any time of year. Which, if you're like a little kid, is like cute and hilarious. And if you're a 26-year-old man, is like terrifying. And foreboding.
I mean, my husband does like costumes and masks though, so.
No, me too. But I've never like been at your house and Sam has like walked by in a mask. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, what's up? Like, and then that's what I'm saying. Like, this guy, this is like what he was doing. So anyway, about 1:30 a.m. So they're like, fuck this. We're going to go find this guy. He's obviously the murderer, Yeah. So around 1:30 a.m., he was found driving around in his car wearing a black leather coat stained with his mother's blood. He was arrested. He didn't like put up a fight or anything. He was arrested and brought in for questioning. And this is where shit gets super weird and really, really fucking dumb. So they bring him in without incident. They take him into an interview room. And there he starts pretending to be insane. But like in the most I saw this in a movie kind of way possible.
Yeah. And like we definitely want to give people like, respect people with mental illnesses and like, 100%. Conditions and give them the benefit of the doubt. But if you could see the stills and the video, it's like, oh, come on, it's like so bad.
Part of what makes this so upsetting to me is that he is just so blatantly ignorant to like what this might actually look like, and he's just like mocking it.
It's actually ableist because he's actually like doing a weird caricature of a mentally ill person.
Yes, it's so fucking bad. So what he's doing, which you know, but I'm going to tell our listeners, is he's like moving his hand in front of him in like small circular movements, like he's on drugs almost.
Right, not like someone on acid.
Yeah, like he's not putting him up in the air or anything. He's just moving it kind of in front of his body in this weird, slow, circular motion. And again, you guys can see this on YouTube. I recommend watching it just because, I mean, if you're okay with like dealing with like severe secondhand embarrassment, I suggest watching this because it's fucking ridiculous.
Or the ableist mockery of the mentally ill, I guess.
Yeah. But then he's also sort of like mumbling and like stuttering, which is something, like I said, he had faked previously when his aunt and uncle were dying. So he's pretending to be out of it, saying he had no idea what happened to his mom. And he's like, my sister said something really bad happened. Like, I don't know what happened to mom. What happened? You know, but he's seeming like tired and weird. Like, what? I don't know. I don't know what happened. What? Like, while twirling his hand, he just seems like he's sedated almost. Like, it's fucking weird. But despite his like, you know, I'm clearly insane and something is wrong with me, he has the presence of mind to ask for a lawyer.
Yep.
Yeah. But he even does that in like an I'm crazy kind of way. Like, oh, am I supposed to have like a lawyer? Oh, I don't know. I mean, am I? I don't know. You know, just like fucking ridiculous. Just so fucking bad. So just watch it on YouTube if you guys want. But in between interviews, police come and go out of the room. But they obviously leave the video fucking running. And wouldn't you know it, Dawson's hands suddenly just go into his lap. He suddenly relaxes.
Oh my God, just drops character.
Normal guy just drops character. And you can watch him. He hears them coming. He lifts his head up. As the door is opening, the hand starts again. Like,
oh my God.
Pathetic.
It's like, dude.
So stupid.
Like, come on. He has to know. He should know that they're filming. Like,
you would think. This guy's a fucking moron. Like, if you look at the photo of him, he's trying to look crazy. Like, his mouth is slightly open. His eyes are like vacant.
He's doing it in his mugshot too.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, his mugshot. And it's just
that
like,
I put on the Instagram.
It's like, dude, you're a fucking piece of shit. You're a fucking asshole. Like, how dare you? You know, like, how dare you fucking try?
And he's taking away from actually mentally ill people because too, like, this kind of thing is why some people think that others are faking it, right?
Yes. And also why they're like, oh, mentally ill people are inherently dangerous. And it's like, no, they're fucking not. Like, and listen, like, I'm not saying he doesn't have some mental issues, because obviously he does. Like, I think he probably has like some sort of like severe narcissism and, you know, some other issues, but he's not like out of his mind to the point where he didn't know what he did. I mean, he's not asking for a lawyer.
Yeah, it's not whatever it is that he's faking.
It's ridiculous. So later on, you know, a neighbor said, like, as he was leaving the house after the murder, they were like, oh, how are you? And he's like, you know, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, and like walked away from them. He's just being like theatrical and stupid. So they go to
saw in a movie.
Exactly. It's all that, you know. So there he goes to trial, and you know, it's a big fucking show. And the superior court basically looks right at him, and after he's found guilty, because obviously he fucking is.
Yeah.
And he says to him, killing your mother is a pretty awful thing. You can't be human and not be affected by this. I know I was. He also then says, there's no fucking way that you were insane at the time of the murder, because you then attempted immediately after to prevent your sister from discovering the murder.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Excuses and, you know, did things that were proved that you were fully in, you know, control of all of your faculties, taking your sister away from the house until after bedtime, telling her not to fucking
thinking that through. Yeah,
telling her not to knock, running away, you know, even pretending to be crazy and asking for a lawyer. Like, all of this points to this being, you know, complete fucking bullshit. His family all basically have come out and been like, our brother's a piece of shit, or like, my son's a piece of shit, like, you know. And then Justin, who's his brother, straight up said, So far, there has been no remorse at all, only arrogance. There has been no honesty, only lies. I told him to be more similar in character to the devil himself. Or I hold him to be more similar in character to the devil himself than any other human being I have known. But then he says also, and yet I refuse to hate him. I refuse to allow someone as morally perverse as he is to force me to live a life of bitterness and ruin the joy I have in loving others.
God damn, that's a good speech. And also morally perverse is a great way to describe someone that you don't like in general. Yep. Like I want to say that about like just random people. Like that cashier was morally perverse.
Yeah. Right. And then his father, I'm just going to end with what his father said. Because honestly, like beyond like the idiocy of what this guy did, like there's not that much to the case. This is very godly, but I do think that sometimes when people are in their darkest hours and they use this, it is a crutch that I understand the need for. And I also think it's a very beautiful thing that he said about his wife. So Tom was sobbing when giving his victim impact statement. And he said, for Dawson, she was tireless. He required extra attention, patience, understanding, care. And she gave it. Then as his demands grew, her capacity grew. Whatever it took to ease his pain, ease his restlessness, ease his discomfort, she would always do. When I heard the words that Dawson had finally taken her precious life, God spoke to my heart and said, no one took her life, son. She gave it. She laid it down.
Ugh.
I know. So sad.
Heartbreaking.
It's
and
so
and just,
sad.
I hate these fucking cases where kids kill their parents too. And especially when like the parent just did nothing but love them, did nothing wrong.
Right.
Like,
right.
There's no angle you can find for and like, to make it okay.
I feel like people could be so victim blamey here. But the thing is, she had 4 children and like, they were all raised in the same household. Like this was just like
people love their kids. I don't think you can blame anyone for trying to help their kid as long as possible. And you know, she sounds like she was having her breaking point as well. So it's like she was on the turning point of that. Like,
yeah. I mean, it feels like she was putting up healthy boundaries and this asshole just couldn't handle it. So he was sentenced to 15 years to life. But it doesn't sound like he will be getting out. Because even though they gave him that sentence, it's, you know, I feel like they put notes on cases like,
yeah, for sure.
You know, and again, because he hasn't shown any remorse, I can't imagine that that's going to look good with the parole
hasn't checked
board.
The right like parole boxes. Really.
Yeah. So it won't be till I think 2027 or 8 that he's eligible for parole anyway. Maybe 2026 actually, depending on when he got sentenced. But anyway, I don't expect to have an update about that anytime soon.
No.
So there it is.
Oh, wow. What a fucked up fucking dude. Fuck him.
Yeah. Right. I'm sorry if that ran a little long, maybe.
No, it's okay. Mine's going to be very, very long. I already told Cindy I'm sorry. I tried to condense it as much as I can, but this ended up being like a mega case. It was like I kind of picked it like randomly and
I'm here for it.
Like, oh, this could have been a Patreon. This is huge. I had to like try to condense it down.
Yep.
And also a huge case that I'm shocked I didn't know anything about. And I think it's because there's people of color involved, maybe. Anyway, this is the murder of Arpana Jinaga. Okay. This happened in 2008 in Redmond, Washington. Arpana was 24. She was originally from Hyderabad in India. And she had always wanted to follow in her father's footsteps as a computer engineer, as did her little sister. So it's like a very computer geek family.
Yes, I love that.
She went and got her BS in India, and then she traveled to Rutgers, where she got her MA in electrical and computer engineering in 2007. So obviously really fucking smart.
Smart, yeah.
In 2008, she got a job as a software quality assurance engineer. That same year, she moved to Redmond, Washington, I believe for, I think for that job or a very similar job. Okay. This is a suburb of Seattle. And there she moves to a new town, right? She doesn't know anyone. And she's like this geeky person, computer engineer. But at the same time, she bought a motorcycle and joined a motorcycle club.
Hell fucking yeah, dude. That's so rad.
Learns how to ride a motorcycle so that she can join a motorcycle club. She's volunteering at the animal shelter. She's volunteering at the fire station. Like she's not just, everyone describes her as not just smart and geeky, but she really was social and like sociably intelligent, you know? Right. Like she could make friends and
so she just did it all.
Yeah. Like she was very sociable.
She was a badass.
Yeah, and like riding a motorcycle. It's really cool.
God damn.
So we're in Halloween of 2008. Arpana told people at her work that she was going to participate in a kind of Halloween block party at her apartment complex, which she was excited about. Mm-hmm. Again, another opportunity to make friends. She hasn't been there that long, right?
Right.
And after she left work, she went to get Halloween decorations for her apartment, so it would be appropriately, spookified, so that she could be one of the co-hosts.
That's cute.
Of the block party. You can tell she's excited.
I love it. One of us.
Last minute. So she decorates and she opens up her apartment along with 3 other neighboring apartments, which are described as kind of motel organized. So you can kind of get the picture that everyone's sort of partying and going between apartments, right?
Okay.
They had snacks and drinks set up in the kind of walkways between.
Okay.
Sounds fun.
Sounds great.
There's about 40 to 50 people at the party throughout the night, and it's mostly residents and their guests. It's not too many, obviously, outside people. Super fine party, nothing crazy happens. A few people get too drunk, but like nothing unusual.
Right.
Little rowdy. Throughout the party, she's described as drinking wine, just being like sociable. She was wearing a Little Red Riding Hood outfit, as you do, little sexy outfit.
Cute.
And the party concludes pretty late, or maybe around. Actually, I read somewhere the party concluded around 9 p.m., but certain people kept partying and partying, as sometimes happens.
I mean, 9 is relatively early, I'm going to say. Super
early.
Like, that feels
I'm not
early.
Sure about that 9 p.m. I also have it in multiple places that she went home around 3 a.m., so I think she was part of that, like, late night party crew.
Okay, yeah.
The stragglers.
Was having a great time.
Oh, yeah. It's Halloween. Come on.
I love it.
I wish I could stay up that late and party, but I'll be asleep on my couch.
Yep.
By that time.
Hell yeah.
So neighbors, here's where things get sinister. Neighbors reported around 8 a.m. that morning hearing a quote unquote growling sound. Another neighbor described it as muffled moaning.
What the fuck?
And they kind of chalked this up to either maybe she was having, normal consensual sex, or perhaps she was vomiting or sick. Like there's some kind of dramatic moaning happening.
Some sort of guttural something is going on. Something primal.
This sound was followed by a thud, and then about an hour of running water. By the way, these walls seem like they're very thin if you can hear water.
Yeah. Jesus.
I cannot hear my neighbors running water.
No. I mean, I don't share walls, thankfully.
God. Yeah, so, you're lucky.
Yeah.
I have really thick walls, so it's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, fuck, if you're gonna live in an apartment, you can't hear your neighbors, never move.
It's great. Yeah, I have like 5 foot thick brick walls. So Arpana's family are the first people to raise alarms, because even though they're in India and they're like halfway across the world, they talk constantly. So about a week after the Halloween party, when they haven't heard from her, they ask their family friend who lives nearby, Jay, to go check on her. And when he does, he finds a neighbor named CJ. I'll say right up front, I believe this is like a pseudonym in the press. I don't know if his name is really CJ. I don't think it is, but we're going to call him CJ.
Okay.
So CJ, the neighbor, comes up to Jay and says, "Oh, I'll go check on her with you." Just inserting himself.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Helpful.
Yeah, so he makes himself come along. So they go in, and the door was clearly broken, and so they just pushed it open. The lock wasn't working. The apartment was disheveled, as if there had been a struggle. And in her bedroom, they find Arpana's nude body. It is partially decomposed because it's been a week.
Right.
They call 911, and investigators arrive and evaluate the scene, which, by the way, spoiler alert, they won't do a great job of, but we'll talk about that later.
God, this doesn't... Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, this is going so much worse than you think, everyone.
Oh, my God.
This is going to get worse before it gets better, and it won't get better.
Oh, great. Okay. This is going to get worse before it gets better, and it's not going to get better. That's like the fucking quote. Oh, my God.
I.e., it's just getting worse. Okay.
Oh, my God.
So, all right. So buckle up. This is horrible as fuck. Like I said, the door had been kicked in, and this is the stuff of my nightmares. The door had been kicked in even though it was deadbolted.
Whoa, that's force.
Yeah.
That is
and you really,
force.
I always feel safe when I deadbolt my doors at night. Like, yeah, no one's getting in now,
Yeah, apparently.
So that's really, really scary.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah. And people who were at the Halloween party at her house can testify also later to like, that this is definitely disheveled. Like, this was not the party that caused it to be disheveled. This was a different state of disarray. We didn't wreck, i.e. we didn't wreck it during the party. The autopsy concluded that Arpana had been strangled to death with a bootlace.
Oh my God.
She was killed in the hours following the party, so between like 3 and 5, or like 3 and I guess maybe 8 because of the sounds a.m.
Right.
So kind of the late hours of the morning.
Yeah.
She had also been raped.
Of course.
She had tons of other injuries, including blows to her head. She had broken teeth. So someone had clearly punched her, beaten her.
Jesus fuck, dude.
She was also gagged with her underwear, and her mouth was covered in duct tape.
Okay.
So this is a serial killer level, like,
this is
brutal
like
assault. Yeah.
This is like somebody's really pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah. Brutal assault. Her body had then, after her death, been scrubbed with bleach to try to erase evidence. And the apartment had been aggressively cleaned. Her comforter was soaking in bleach in her bathtub.
Jesus Christ.
And a trail of bleach was found throughout the apartment. Investigators said that when they opened the apartment, the chemical smell was super fucking strong.
Oh, that's horrible.
And they could also smell motor oil because her body was doused in motor oil and the assailant had tried to light her on fire.
What the fuck?
And because, weirdly, motorcycle oil isn't flammable, it actually wouldn't light, but they tried.
Yeah, okay. I was like, wow, kind of impressed by like how smart they were, and then like, and they're not that smart.
And this is something she clearly had. It's motorcycle oil, right? So it's hers.
Yeah, so it's her own shit, right?
Yeah, the can of motor oil was also found in a bag in a trash can at her complex, and that bag also contained her costume from that night, a bathrobe that was stained with blood, and her bed sheets, and a blanket of hers, and some bits of carpet and sheet that were found partially burned. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, Sam. Okay. So there's the bed sheets, the bathrobe, and the costume are in the bag, but then also separately, a blanket of hers, part of her costume, bits of carpet, and a sheet were found burned in the apartment. So this person is taking a long time to like throw stuff out, bleach some stuff, burn some stuff, like trying all different methods to dispose of evidence.
I mean, they had a week. They may have even come back. Who knows, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Her phone and camera were missing, as was one of her IDs. And so this could be partly like a serial killer souvenir thing. It could also very well, especially with obviously the phone and camera, it could be to hide evidence.
Right.
Yep. Who knows? So it's really fucked up. A really cool, awesome girl. And this is beyond
a terrible way for her to die. Yeah. I mean, what the fuck?
So her family holds a Hindu funeral for her in Washington, and then her body is sent back to India to her family. Her family's obviously devastated. Yeah. Just one sweet commemorative thing. The Pacific Northwest Riders, the motorcycle club that she would belong to, hosted a memorial ride to commemorate her. Aww. And one of them in the press at that time said, quote, "When you met her, she would have you smiling within 15 seconds.
Oh my God. That's like, so sad.
So sad. Okay, so that's kind of like part one. Part two is going to anger you even further.
Oh, I'm sure.
In 2010, so 2 years later, authorities announced that they've arrested 27-year-old Emmanuel Fair, who was the only Black man to have attended the Hell-O-Ween party.
Oh, are you fucking kidding me?
So this is going where you think it's going.
Oh my God.
Witnesses described him as the Black guy, because there's one of him, I guess. He had a criminal record, and this is probably what really condemns him. And guess what? I don't want to give it away. So he had a criminal record where he had been convicted of the 3rd-degree rape of a 15-year-old, and he did an Alford plea, which means he thought he was pleading his innocence, but accepted the charges because he couldn't afford to go to trial at the time.
Right.
I'm not sure what 3rd-degree rape is. I should have looked that up, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Could it be like, was he like, how old was he at the time?
Was it statutory? You know,
that's what I'm thinking. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Look it up.
Oh no, yeah. Seem to be 3rd-degree rape. Yeah, I don't know what the degrees are with rape. Oh, I think it might be statutory.
To me, it makes sense that it would be statutory.
Okay,
21 or older, and is with somebody younger.
Who can't consent because they're younger. Anyway, so that it could be, but it was third degree, whatever that means. That was the kind of thing that perhaps flagged him on their radar. But there's a couple other things. And I will warn you, the evidence against him will sound bad, but I'll kind of like refute it a little bit as we go.
Okay.
So Emmanuel was staying on the couch of one of Arpana's neighbors at the time. So he was around, he went to the party, and he was seen interacting with CJ, which I'll come back to later, that like mysterious neighbor. He did admit to going to the party. He wasn't trying to hide that. He met her briefly. He stayed that night at his friend Leslie's apartment. That's who he was staying with. And he said he fell asleep around 1 a.m. But this is supposedly, contradicting his fell asleep at 1 a.m. story. Between 2 and 5 a.m., he was actually making several calls to other women and women that he knew.
The fuck was that?
Very aggressive motorcycle. I'm speaking of motorcycles.
I was like, sound like somebody sneezed or something. Okay, go on. Sorry.
So, but this also kind of refutes that he could be involved because he's texting girls at the time of the murder.
I mean, that would be like a particular kind of fucking psychotic to be doing that. And also like he's bleaching and burning and raping and murdering and texting.
A lot of activity.
No, that's too much. No. Like that's not what's happening.
Yeah, he would have had to be over there during the texting period for sure.
Right.
When they announced his arrest, they primarily, besides these other things like his record and a small contradiction there, they cite his DNA matching traces of DNA on her neck, on the tape that gagged her, and on the robe in the trash bag. And that is their big smoking gun.
Okay. I mean, if that's true, then that's fair.
Several howevers. However, they were later found to have very shoddy DNA collecting practices. They did not change gloves between collecting samples between different locations, for example. And because of the party, various man's DNAs were everywhere. Everywhere, all across the scene. And according to later, things I'll talk about later, 3 DNA samples from the crime scene were actually matched to people that Arpana knew. There was DNA found on her wrist. There was also a tampon that was removed. I'm not sure if it was in the process of the rape or removed by her separately, but there was 3 separate DNA profiles on a tampon. Of men. There was also, at least, like I said, these 3 solid suspects who were all white, of course, including neighbor CJ. And let's talk about neighbor CJ a little bit here. And then I'll talk about the other DNA of the two other guys.
Okay.
But again, this is like a DNA party. It's like DNA explosion.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the DNA also had a Halloween party. So
yes, literally. It was exploded everywhere.
Insane.
So neighbor CJ had his fingerprints inside her window.
Okay.
On the bottle of motor oil.
Okay.
On the wet carpet and on a lighter that was sticky at his house that no one ever tested for motor oil. He also went to pawn shops the next day, which could have been for her phone and camera. He was also weirdly jealous of her, of guys that she was talking to, and acted weird and jealous at her. He also drove to Canada with no passport the next morning and said he was just exploring for fun, no reason at all.
He did this. I'm sorry.
He also lied about when he called her. He said it was 10 a.m. after he heard the noises at 8 a.m., but he actually called her around 3 a.m. and he had no explanation for this. He was like, whoops, I don't remember that.
Was he like, would he fucking call her so he could like find her cell phone so he could steal it and sell it? Like,
or he was trying to like, I don't know, make it seem like he didn't do it and then like lie later. I don't know. I feel like more like when I lose my cell phone, I'm always like, Rory, call my phone. So maybe he was like, I gotta steal her phone. I gotta call it to find it. I don't know. That's where my mind went. Another guy from the party had his DNA found on the shoelace that strangled her.
Okay. Okay. I mean,
part of me is like, did multiple guys from the party do this? Because what the fuck? Like,
yeah, that's weird.
Another guy who was from the motorcycle club she had been in, who had a fucking history of sexually harassing her and had a violent, like, sexual crimes record, had DNA all over the fucking place. She also was sleeping with a guy in the club, so that's a connection. He's not guilty for any real clear reason, but they didn't test him or look into him.
Because they got the black guy. The black guy did it.
Correct. They found the one.
We found the black guy. They won the game.
Another apartment resident who killed himself mere days later, which is kind of maybe a red flag. They never looked into him.
Okay.
So Emmanuel Fair's defense will counter that he was obviously treated quite differently compared to these white suspects who, including especially CJ, I would say, have like very compelling evidence against them.
Yeah.
A bit more than Emmanuel.
Yeah.
And as the press would point out later, there's also a DNA lab they get that like Emmanuel will contest over the years repeatedly, because there's the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab comes out and says Emmanuel Fair was 1,000 times more likely to be the source of the DNA on those couple of items than an unrelated African American. So probably was his traces on those few items.
Okay.
But this company that the prosecution gets is named True Allele, which is shady, found him to be 56.8 million times more likely. So like those are two very different results.
Yeah, but also like again, there's a ton of DNA everywhere.
It doesn't really matter, yeah.
It doesn't. That alone, the fingerprints on the motor oil, the fingerprints on the wet carpet, like that means you fucking touched those items. Not that your DNA was like
those
swapped
are things
around.
That are super clearly related to the murder too.
That's insane to me.
Yeah. No, and it's 1-to-1 as many things this other person had their DNA on, if not more.
Right.
That are equally, if not more, tied to the murder.
Right.
So a lot of legal battles happen. Emmanuel, between 2010 and, believe it or not, 2017 is when, after all these appeals and legal battles, Emmanuel Fair is contesting. There's all these complications. And 2017, he finally faces trial.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I said, his defense brings up all these different men's crime scenes. So like they're asking basically, why was Emmanuel singled out? And they also determined that the stuff in the dumpster, which is mostly where his DNA was very much compromised. It was trashed, whatever.
It's trash. Yeah.
Yeah. This trial resulted in a gridlock, a hung jury.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically because a juror said after the trial, or I guess, at some point between trial and the hung jury, or the kind of everything getting thrown out, he said that when he looked at Fair, he, quote, saw a thug with tattoos on his hands. He had tattoos on his hands.
I have tattoos on my hands.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm not black, so, I get a pass.
This first trial was a hung jury or it was also thrown out because of racism.
Good.
So the prosecution prepared to retry Emmanuel Fair. They're not giving up. And they became, in the second trial in 2008, reliant on the idea that he acted alongside an unnamed...
You mean 2018?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, 2018.
Okay.
They became reliant on an idea that they just invented, that he acted alongside an unnamed accomplice, and it was theoretically someone else, not the neighbor, just an imaginary person. And this is how they're explaining all the other like mystery DNA. It was like, oh, it was this other guy.
That doesn't exist. We have all these people with DNA evidence, but we're going to make up like an imaginary fucking friend.
This is what I've seen them do this.
Oh my God.
Cops do this specifically in trials where the DNA of innocent people, oftentimes innocent Black people, does not match. They invent an imaginary second person,
right,
to say, oh, well, it was this person that you were doing it with, right?
So they can still oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This makes me insane.
And he also had no relationship to anyone else at the party. He was just there with Leslie. Like, he didn't have any other friends there who like he would have accomplice with.
Mm-hmm.
So in his second trial, which ended in June 2019, a jury determined this is bullshit and they threw it all out.
Thank God, man.
It was determined basically not strong enough to go to trial, and he was cleared of all charges and he walked free.
Good.
So the last thing I'll say here is that as recently as April 2022, in like many articles of 2021 and earlier this year, he did a kind of press junket about his experience, because he spent 8 years in prison without being convicted of anything, dude.
He did 8 years?
Yes. He was never convicted. He was awaiting trials.
What?
/ in trial. Yeah, he was never out.
Fuck.
Mm-hmm. He has done his kind of press tour in early 2022 to talk about how he is now suing absolutely everyone he can.
Good.
He is suing up a storm.
How the fuck was he held that whole time?
Yeah, from 2010 to essentially early 2019.
While not found guilty at all. They just
not
held
convicted.
him.
Yeah, just awaiting trial.
Why would he not be out awaiting trial?
Awaiting trial. Yeah.
Oh my fucking God. Okay, so what's up with Cameron? Like, they haven't charged him? They're just not doing that?
You mean CJ here? Our friend CJ?
Yeah, sorry, I looked him up. His name's Cameron. Cameron Johnson.
Oh.
I think that's his fucking name. Like, that is, I don't know. I wrote.
I haven't looked it up, but the Rolling Stone article I used was like, oh, we're not going to name him out of respect for the and Cindy's just like, boop, boop,
Cameron
boop,
Johnson.
Boop.
Who the fuck is Cameron Johnson? Like, I'm just saying, like, that's
there's again multiple valid suspects that were never investigated. They never tested for their DNA. So they go up in trial and they say, oh, Emmanuel Fair's DNA is everywhere. And it's like, but you never tested for anyone else.
Yeah. But also the guy's fingerprints are on the shit that was used in the murder. So like to cover up the murder. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And he also inserted himself weirdly afterwards. He's like meeting up with the friend he wants to be there when the body is found. There's all these other circumstantial things.
His name is out everywhere.
Okay. All right. We're not
people are like looking for no.
Yeah, but there's still a chance that someone legitimate like him or someone else could be criminally charged because there's clearly evidence that it's still testable because Emmanuel Fair's team, I think, were the ones testing everything.
So why the fuck aren't they, like, now that they don't have a suspect, the case is now reopened?
Oh no, police can't admit they're wrong. We know how this works. Police can't admit they're wrong.
I know.
At all. Once especially when they found a black suspect, they're like, oh no, we're so right. Justice escaped us. Go read the articles. If you want to know more, go read the series of articles Emmanuel did with the press, because it's also really heartbreaking. His family's there, his mom's there. He seems like a really good guy. He talks about how he's still struggling tremendously because he says he's, quote, out but not free. Right. Because both of the stigma against him, but also because he could still be tried for this. Right. He was never convicted of it. Right. So it's not like he was tried and exonerated properly. Right. He was just never brought to trial.
They just made him fucking sit there
for 8 years.
I hope he gets millions of dollars.
And I'm sure he could. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fuck that shit. Like,
and you know what? Even if he did have a record, even if he is a shitty guy, even if he did rape someone, I don't know. It's possible he didn't. But even if he did, no one deserves to have their civil liberties taken away for 8 years for nothing.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, I'm not saying like he's a fucking angel or he's even like not a piece of shit
to not deserve this.
Right. I'm just saying like there's not enough evidence for him to be held for 8 years. That's ridiculous. Like,
no, and they obviously focused in on him. He obviously has that argument. It's airtight because there's other people that are.
I feel like the police in Washington are like kind of horrible. Like whenever I hear about the Washington police, it's always like really, really bad.
Like they suck at like not finding Bundy too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think they're just like worthless all around. Like,
I mean, they suck everywhere. It's a thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Wow, man, that's fucked up.
Yeah. So you see why that was a saga, because it was like both the murder of Arpana, which is also, there's no justice for her, of course.
At all, or her family.
And then, there's also this horrific injustice against a black man and his family. So
yeah, that's fucked up. Yep. And then this also like other person who's just like free after like if there's enough evidence to hold that guy for 8 years, then there's enough evidence to try Cameron Johnson.
Yeah, that's to me, also it's definitely finite in that it was definitely someone who was at the party. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I feel pretty solid about that. Like, as an amateur detective in my mind, like it was definitely someone at the party.
I would bet money that it's Cameron Johnson, and I'm not saying that I'm right. And I don't want to get sued or whatever. But that's just my opinion.
It's a hypothetical opinion.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down the Reddit rabbit hole right now and convince myself even further. So that'll be fun. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, these are our stories. We hope you guys enjoyed them.
Halloween stories. Be safe at your Halloween parties. Not that Arpana did anything fucking wrong. She deadbolted her door. That's what's
and
terrifying about it.
Like, we don't mean be careful because if you're not, you're gonna get murdered and that's your fault. We just mean be careful in general. Like, be ready to
in any way that you can be.
Always be careful. Yeah. And if you're not, and something terrible happens to you, it's not your fault. And we hope you are okay. And fuck people who do horrible things to other people.
And also, if someone's coming at you, pop their eyes out.
Pop the eyeballs out. Kick him in the balls.
Kick him in the knees. Also, an inward kick down onto a knee.
Oh, that'll fuck him up for life. That'll make him.
I learned that in like 2 different self-defense classes. They taught that if you try to kick someone's knee backwards in, it's very effective.
Yeah, you'll fucking cripple them for life, honestly.
And if you're pressed up against someone, you're in a perfect position actually to like put your leg up and go right down on the knee.
Yeah, get them. All right.
This has been your weekly self-defense tip.
That is in no way putting the onus of safety on the victims once again.
No, but just food for thought.
The sad reality is that may come in handy for some of us at some point. Let's hope not. All right, what are we doing for next week to wrap up our Halloween October extravaganza?
I mean, it's never wrapped up because it's always Halloween in my heart.
I know. I know.
But I kind of wanted to do a sequel to our very good slew we had last year. And I think after some discussion, the best one to do would be Vampires.
More vampires.
Vampires, the sequel. You can give it a really good name too, like on the episode, like Vampires Part 2, the sequel, the vampirening, the bloodening.
The bloodening. There it is.
Yeah. Blood tornado.
That only ooh, yuck. Oh, blood tornado. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the bloodening. That took about 0.5 seconds to find, so I think that's the one to go with.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, you guys. We can't wait to talk to you about vampires next week. And until then,
stay
off our